Okay, so I turned off both computers so it's nice and quiet. I'm sitting here by myself trying to calm down. Amari had another seizure this morning at around 6:30 or so. Okay, everybody was kind of waiting for it. Tisha was kind of waiting for it, thinking about it. Andre was thinking about it. Like in the last month, right? We're all like, it's been a long time since Amari had a seizure, okay? So Tisha today mentioned when I seen her and the subject of seizures came up. Oh yeah, I just was recently thinking about, is he going to have it? Andre just mentioned it to me a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm hearing what you're saying, Andre. I've been thinking about it. So everybody's on edge, waiting for the seizure to come, because with Amari and his pattern, it seems to be, for me, it's almost like the way I'm interpreting it, people, is it's a release that just kind of brings them back to right? And then over a period of, I guess, a year and a bit, because it seems to run on yearly cycles, from 12 to, kind of like that pipe that I have downstairs, 12 to 15 months, you can expect to have a seizure, because that's what's been happening, right? And over the last several years, right? If like, when was the last time you had a seizure? Oh, I don't know. It's been so long ago, and I don't necessarily keep track of these things. I don't, right? As much as I'd like to keep it in a nice little organized book or whatever, is impossible at this point when it comes to paperwork. But besides that point, what's the date today? It is like June. I think it's the 16th of June. I turned off the computer, so I can't even I'm so stressed out. That's what it is, right? I slept like this on a chair for most of the day at the children's hospital in the emergency ward, because I was up at 4:30 in the morning finishing the kale, which I just uploaded that video because I just got home, which is, I don't know, it's like 7:30 going on 8 o'clock at night. And I just posted the video onto YouTube that I did last at 4 o'clock in the morning. You see at the very end of that video, the jars with the kale, as I have the liver sitting in my fridge, with the pork sitting in my fridge, with that other little bit of kale left over that needs to be canned. And I'm debating whether I should just can it up at 70 minutes, wash the jars, throw everything in real fast. They're going to be salmon-sized jars. That's because it's bacon. So and I was going to roll it, right? I was fry it first, see if it's good. If I like it, then I always tell you, if you like it, then you can can it, right? If you don't like it, don't waste your time, because canning isn't just some pastime that's trivialous and a waste of time. Okay, there is actually value behind it. So besides that point, I think it's June 16th. It's either the 16th or the 17th, and we're on Monday. I think we're on Monday, okay? Because I lost a day here, right? Because what's happening is, and I mean, like, don't get me wrong, people. I'm glad it happened. I guess you could say sooner than later, okay? When it came to, I don't know why that keeps doing that. Oh, I know what that is. I think that's my printer making noise. I don't know what that is. I think that's, I'm going to turn off the volume on this and we'll see. Okay, so what was I saying? I am not rushing with this video, and I'm going to, I'm going to, oh my God, what the hell? I'm going to unplug that. That's my printer doing something there. All its ink disappeared. Don't ask me how that happened. I was hardly ever using the printer, right? Because I wanted to save the ink for a bigger print, right? And then when I went to go print one page, it didn't print out nothing. It didn't even show lines, because whatever was in the cartridges all dried up. Don't ask me how that one happened, but what a talk about a waste of money. All right, so the last time, we're going to talk about Amari, okay? That's what this video is about. Amari had another seizure. And then the other part of that is, I had it already figured out in my head, and now I lost it. Amari had another seizure. That's the title of this video. And then the food mill. The food mill, right? The food mill? The grain mill? The grain mill. The grain mill. I don't know. I spent $1,700 on my credit card to buy a food mill that could not only grind up wheat and beans and all that stuff, but on the other half of it, it can grind up oat groats so that you can have fresh oatmeal that comes from organic oat groats. Okay? Now, why did I do that? Well, maybe because I'm thinking about my family, with my family being mainly Amari and Andre, right? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, we know Maria, you know, somebody that was whatever. Go into my videos and find out who the hell Rhea is if you want to know. Anyway, she walked off, I'm pretty sure, people, with my flaker that costed me $400 Canadian to buy, that you could do by hand, right? And because it was a well-made flaker for oat groats, it could have became a little family heirloom, considering I only paid $400 for it. You wouldn't have gotten much out of it, but you would have had to do it by hand, but at least you'd be able to utilize your oat groats and flake them, right? But because that bitch stole that flaker, I'm left with nothing as I'm like working so hard cleaning up after my son and his wife as they've been throwing out shit for fucking years, okay? And I'm still dealing with that crap. As my landlord in January comes and does what she does, and, you know, shit's coming into the house even more as I'm trying to rescue this and save that, but lose like almost $10,000 worth of fucking shit here, right? As well as still have to pay $1,900 to my landlord to pay for fucking water and frozen wood and a whole bunch of shit that should have not been thrown out in the garbage, but because they're on power tripping out here trying to, you know, build their little case so they can evict me from this house so they can get more fucking money, and then blah, 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 blah. We know the story if you've been watching my videos. You know, so I'm still dealing with that. And then fucking Rhea shows up in April, right? Okay? So, you know what I'm saying? And does what she does. And I'm still dealing with that. And now we got the freezer downstairs all of a sudden, poof, magically stops working. Yeah, okay, sure. But besides that point, I have to empty out that freezer while I find out the one outside has been unplugged and half of everything in there is fucking unthawed and ready to be either cooked up or thrown out, right? You only have so much time to do shit. So in the meantime, I'm riled up, people, because, you know, it's like you'll hear why. And, you know, in the meantime, you know, I'm trying to build in that meal program for Amari because it has to be a freaking program. Okay? It's like, you know, it's got to be a fine-tuned little to one degree or another, right? Where it's like, it's so easy for people to say, do this, and do this. And do you want to know why I'm like kind of egged right now? Because Amari's at the hospital. Just follow me on this, okay? Amari's at the hospital because it's not so much that he had the seizure. He's past that part. If his weight was at a more there is something going on with my printer. Anyway, I can't stop that from happening, okay? This is new. It just started. I don't know why it's making noise. Obviously, it's a distraction for me, right? He's been losing weight for a long time, okay? Oh, I don't know how to stop that. That is so freaking annoying. Oh my Lord. I'm going to turn the bloody thing on. And turn it off. Maybe if I just it'll turn itself off, maybe it'll shut up. Okay. Let's take it to a starting point, because Amari's still in the hospital because he's underweight. The seizure brought him to the hospital. Now keep in mind, we were going to go to the children's hospital in July because he has an appointment with the hip doctor, to whom has somehow started to integrate me with another doctor and a nurse that would work with me to deal with Amari being underweight, because the last time we went to the appointment at the children's hospital, that's what was decided. Only they haven't contacted me yet because, you know, things take a while for referrals to go through or whatever, and I'm okay with that because I was going back to the children's hospital within the next 6 months. Okay? And so any follow-ups would have happened there, right? So we're 1 month away from going to the children's hospital. All right. So when we were there 5 months ago, and I did a video on this, I'm sure I talked about it because I talk about these things, right? He was underweight. His hips are displacing because he's active. He moves people. Like, this kid goes like nonstop. Sometimes he sleeps less than me and Andre, less than Andre and I. Like, seriously, I don't know where he gets all his energy from, but he gets a lot of it. All right. So the doctor, Dr. Amari, he told me when we were there at the children's, he said, I'm glad I didn't do the surgery, because he wanted to do that surgery, which I've been not in favor of, because one, it's still somewhat experimental, even though they've been doing it for quite a long time. It had too many risk factors in light of how mobile, even though Amari technically shouldn't be mobile because he's so severely disabled with being able to not stand and all this other stuff, but he still flips himself around and does whatever, okay? He's still that Houdini baby, people. And that's what I tell Dr. Amari. So anyway, long story short, he said, gee, I'm glad I didn't do the surgery. And I said, why? Because he lost so much weight. That's why, people, because he wouldn't have been able, anything could have happened with him spread eagle like this for 8 to 9 months a year, hopefully with no complications where it's got to happen again, just so they can do something and put a plate in between the hip, right? Because if it's displacing you, they bring it back and they pin it with, right? And then they put him in a cast and they leave it like that for 8 months to a year, assuming there are no complications, right? And then they take it off, and then the key, right? But there's no guarantee that whatever they did, because eventually they take out the plate, right? Right? But there's no guarantee that whatever they did isn't going to make it displace again. Okay, pop out, right? So for what it was worth, Amari was healthy, active, moving around, happy, coming into his own little milestones. Hell, he was even standing up on his freaking knees as his legs are all gimped up. Okay? That's just him. That's right? You know, he's standing like you know when you're on your knees? Well, he gets on his knees, I'm on my knees on my chair. Next thing you know, he's like this, with a big-ass freaking grin on his face, reaching onto my sewing table, trying to start grabbing shit, okay? So, you know, like, in terms of quality of living, he's a pretty active, happy kid that way, right? Versus being locked up like this for 8 months to a year, right? And perhaps even longer because, you know, there's a complication, or he manages to get through that all breezy, easy peasy, and then they take it off, and within a year, whatever they did pops out, and next thing you know, he's back like this for another fucking year or more. Okay? It wasn't worth the risk. I said, no, you know, I just wait. And then now that we waited, but Amari's weight started to drop with those drinks, people. It's documented where when I went to the feeding team with the Children and Child Development Center, he was on basically 5 of those drinks in a day, which was too much. because he stopped eating. And then those witches, because I've called them witches before, because, you know, it's like, it's easy for people to say, do this, do this, do this. And even if you do it, there's a backlash, there's consequences around it. Sure, you can tell me to give them 5 of those freaking drinks a day, and then expect me to feed him when there's no room in his stomach to feed him food, right? So if he doesn't eat the food, but he's still drinking the drinks, and then those drinks are worse than gum that swell up and get stuck and hard like a rock to the point where he can't poo. And even if you give him the Emolax, all the Emolax does is soften the outside of it, but it doesn't soften it on the inside where he can pass the whole stool. Do you understand? Like, there's so many fucking issues that we're dealing here with, and people just don't get it because they don't have to do the walk. It's one thing to talk, it's another thing to actually do the walk. All right, so why am I all stressed out? Because everybody's in like kind of like looking at me like I'm going out of my way to be, I don't know what, right? In terms of, right? Like, listen, when those women told me at the Child Development Center to start giving him 7 of those drinks a day when we were already giving him 4 to 5, and he stopped fucking eating food because he was full because of the drinks, but he couldn't fucking poo because of those drinks clogging him up so bad. Even if you gave him the Emolax, it still didn't fucking work, to the point where I had to go to the bloody bathroom, give him a bath, and kind of take it out myself with the finger, okay? And I didn't appreciate that, and I didn't think it was fair to him. Only that was the only solution that I could figure out at that time, because those drinks, in my opinion, and this is the point, are dangerous for him. Well, Tisha today ragging me at the fucking hospital the minute she fucking gets there to take the night shift, saying, well, you're gonna have to put him on a feeding tube. And I'm like, Tisha, you don't understand. They put the feeding tube into the kids that can't eat or won't eat. You see, that's why I had to take the drinks away, people, to show that Amari loves to eat. He loves to eat. He waits to eat. You know what I'm saying? And if these things aren't clogging him up, he will eat. It's a little more easier to manage natural food and get his bowels rolling, whether through prune juice, plums that I've grind up. Spinach is a great one. If you give him a lot of spinach over a period of 2 or 3 days, that's a natural laxative right there, okay? But you got to be careful with that, though, because, you know, diarrhea can also remove nutrients from the body being able to absorb it, okay? So, and that's with the Emolax. If you give them too much Emolax, it creates the diarrhea, which, you know, it makes everything runny from the outside of this. Think of a stool, right? It makes everything runny on the outside, but it doesn't, depending on what the food is, right? If it's gummy, it doesn't erode what's in the middle, okay? And it still stays stuck inside of him. So you have to be freaking careful. These people that are like all up in arms because Amari's so skinny, well, what do you think I've been dealing with? At least we try to, I don't know, people, like, anyway, I'm taking in my frying pan tomorrow. We're up in the ante, okay? If you think that, right, this is what I got to work with. And we're going to build in 4 meals that are high in calorie count and nutrition, right? Okay? At least 4, 2 to 4. I don't think he could eat a whole pan. And even if he could eat like a half a pan of food, I don't know, that's like maybe 2 bowls, like that would be 2 bowls of food, which I would think, in my opinion, would be too much for his stomach to digest at one time, right? And if it's not coming out on the other end, well, that's an issue too, right? Because you can only put in so much before it starts upchucking, right? Okay? And if you're giving him Emalax daily, but it's creating a freaking diarrhea versus a soft stool, there's a difference between a soft stool that where the body is absorbing the nutrients compared to a diarrhea that takes away the electrolytes and right, you know what I'm saying? And if you don't, right, if you're not getting enough, I don't know, like, you know, I don't know. So anyway, I just don't know, people. I told Tisha, like, you know, like, you need to back off on that one, because so what, you're gonna, and the stuff that they put into these feeding tubes to go through the line in terms of the food, blah blah blah, is the same kind of shit that they got them drinking in a bottle. In my opinion, it was those things that created the intestinal problems, because I feel that whatever's going on with Amari might be a little more physiologically. It's actually to do with the body itself not being able to absorb certain maybe types of nutrients. You know how some people can't eat wheat, right? I'm not saying that Amari can't eat wheat, because we don't eat, you know, I mean, I give him bread every now and then with soups, like if Andre makes him like a canned soup or something, you know, like a vegetable soup, because he likes Campbell's vegetable. We all do, right? And we really enjoy it, and he loves it, right? You know, instead of giving him crackers, give him a slice of bread with it, because there's more nutrients in the bread, okay? And this is where the food mill comes in, because the breads that you buy in the grocery stores have glyphosate in it, because the wheat itself is not organic, to which some people are actually allergic or have reactions towards glyphosate, which is I don't know if it's a pesticide or a herbicide or something. It's something that they spray in the fields to maintain, I guess, weeds or pests, one or the other. It's glyphosate. Right? It controls the growth of the wheat. It makes it so the wheat, you know, I don't know. So anyway, it's not good for humans per se, but right, farmers do what farmers do, and for some people they're sensitive to it. So maybe Amari's you know, sensitive to that, and that could interrupt being able to absorb nutrients and whatnot. Or some people can't freaking absorb fats, animal fats, any kind of fats, and so because they can't absorb the fats, they don't gain the weight. That could be another problem. And because Amari is so active non-stop throughout the day, for the most part, even at night, people, you watch my videos, he bouncing around at 4 o'clock in the freaking morning with Andre keeping an eye on him so he doesn't fall off the couch. Like, come on, right? You do the math on that one. You know, he's burning a lot of calories, but at the same time, you know, there has to be that balance, because so I told her, I said, well, the drinks that they prescribed to him before would be similar to what they would give to him in a feeding tube. And if it didn't work when he can actually drink it himself, right? If you're giving him 5 a day and you're adding on 2 more as he's losing weight with the 5 that you've already given him, and he doesn't want to eat food because of those 4 or 5, because it'd be between 4 to 5, right? Because, you know, he's tiny, right? And then it gets to the point where he just won't take nothing anymore, because nothing's coming out. And he'll just stop even drinking that. And then you go into panic mode for the next 4 or 5 days with those poo parties, waiting for it to come out, which could be quite difficult, even if you use the Emalax. And if you overuse the Emalax, Joe, my God, you just turned me, you fucking freaked me out, man.
I'm sorry. I thought you heard me open the door.
No, you know, it turns into diarrhea, right? I'm just jumpy. It turns into diarrhea, and then you're dealing with diarrhea for a while. Who knows how long you're just dealing with diarrhea, right? Which can compromise absorbing nutrients. And everybody knows that, as well as quite possibly tipping them over to dehydration. So you got to be careful of that. Like, you always got to be on one step ahead, and you never really get one step ahead, because that whatever's going on is beyond that step, right? All right. So, you know, but because of the way, you know, he's so tiny, like he's underweight, and he's, tiny, right? And what's happened with his legs is because he's so active and he uses them to his advantage, to his ability. Okay, when you have a child with cerebral palsy that can't walk, what happens is they start to go like this. They're crossing their legs. They call them scissor legs. Scissor legs or something. Cross scissor legs or something. I don't know. Right? That's where this thing comes in. That's what that surgery was meant to stop, to prevent future pain. Because if, it's a preventative measure. It wasn't a reaction to something as it was to prevent. Amari is going like this, to which eventually they will pop out. Most kids will experience pain from that situation. Through the statistics that Dr. Malperi gave me a long time ago, I think 10% of kids that go have that problem and then they pop out, they don't really suffer from pain, and I guess they just go through life, right? Whereas when kids have that happen to them, then from my understanding, they cut the bone. I guess they remove it, throw it out, and then the child is just left with that and how they navigate and move around. Well, obviously not as well as if there was bone there, right? But they manage, and I guess they can get scoliosis or something for some with the spine. I think that's what that is, right? Outside of that, they live their lives. Putting him in a cast for 8 months to a year, losing weight the way he's been losing, it would have been a freaking nightmare. Oh yeah, that's why Dr. Malperi said, I'm glad I didn't do it. Because it just for whatever reason, and I do believe that with these supplemental drinks, clogging him up the way they were clogging him up, and just dealing with that for a couple of years, to the point where he wasn't gaining the weight, as they were asking me to give him even more. Like I said, instead of 5, now give him 7, but that's not solving the problem, because the 5 isn't even solving the problem. And all you did was make it so that he doesn't want to eat nothing. It was enough to try and get him to eat yogurt. Came to him with any other kind of food, he wouldn't eat it because he was so full with those drinks. Yeah. Even with the Emalax. And even then, it became dangerous. I tried to, I made the decision, right, to just get rid of the drinks. But I felt guilty and I felt scared. So I gave him 1 or 2 throughout the week. Oh, no, that didn't work any more than, no, it just clogged him up. It just put a big freaking bubble in there. Okay, fine, no drinks. And then for the first month or 2, it actually worked out really good. I mean, his appetite came just like that, and he was loving it. He was greasing, he was happy. Okay, you could almost say he even got more active with the food, in terms of just, being whatever, robust. And I was using a fair amount of prune juice and those prunes. And I was trying to bring in the spinaches and stuff, because now he's eating, right? So all of a sudden I got this kid that wants to eat, and I'm being told this, and this, and this, and I have to figure it out, right? And for the first, 3-4 months, I guess it was, he was like, the poo situation was kind of really good. It was not hard. It was not soft. It wasn't hard and it wasn't runny, but it was in the middle, and it was comfortable for him to pass it. But of course, maybe not enough calories. So then you bring in the heavier foods, like with the more macaroni, right? You add in just that kind of, give them cereals. Cereals is an iffy one. They can gum them up as much as those drinks can gum them up. So you got to be careful with the like shreddies. He loves shreddies. We were giving him shreddies with this, that, and everything. But then after a while, even the shreddies was starting to clog him up. So, right? So it's like, it's like a never-ending nervous breakdown. That's what it is, people. Seriously. Because no matter what you do, how you do it, how much you think you can do, how much you think you've done, at the end of the day, if you can't produce whatever it is that other people expect you to produce, even if you put that expectation on yourself, like in terms of, come on, Mari, we're going to fatten you up, right? And like, it's not working, nothing seems to be working. And then to have to go into a situation where, Amari had a seizure, you take him to the hospital. Now you've got a whole crew of strangers looking at him saying, holy shit, where did this kid come from? You know what I'm saying? Because he's so like skinny. And then because he broke his tibia when he had those little ankle things, and he's whipping his legs around. He whacked, I guess it was this one here. He whacked his tibia and he broke his tibia. Then they put the cast on, but they put it on like this versus, I don't know. Anyway, it was like that. When they took it off, ever since then, his leg's been like this. The whole leg. So, of course, because he's moving and he knows how to use it to his advantage, it's just kind of formed itself that way. But it doesn't hurt him. It gives him support when he needs it to get to where he needs to go and when he does what he does. Whether it's sitting up, turning himself around, flipping himself like that, and then so he can go grab something. So he can feel like he accomplished something versus just having to be like that or just like that. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Like, Amari is very... You've seen me. I've put him in one spot, came back here, and not even a minute later, he's right back halfway across the couch, facing in the opposite direction. Okay? That's because he uses his body parts, including his legs, that are kind of gimped up because of just the nature of cerebral palsy for children like this, where they start to do the crisscross. And then because he broke the tibia, right, with the leg ankle bracelet, by whacking the tibia, it broke, and then they cast it like that. And then because he's determined to move all the time, his legs are kind of like this, right, when he's like just laying there. So if you don't know these things and you're coming in as a new person and you see this, right away you're going to spring to action. And then the first thing you're going to assume is that I've been neglecting him. I'm not feeding him. I must not be feeding him because he's so skinny, when in fact that's not true. Now, I did speak to an occupational therapist at the Child Development Center because she works with children like with Amari. And so therefore she's seen What?
Putting Elsie back inside now.
Yeah. So she comes into contact with a number of children that have that situation, right? And I just asked her, like, there's a thing called tone, which is kind of like a stiffness or something. I don't know. I can't, right? And because his right side doesn't work, he's always been skinny. He's got, he not so much now because he's losing the weight, right? But, he has muscle tone, right? Where on this side, no, it's always been thinner, the leg's been okay? And then as he's been losing the weight, it's obviously more pronounced, right? And when he's, what I'm trying to say is his body itself is using a fair amount of energy, even when he's not doing anything or if he's sleeping. Yeah. because over the last year, off and on, because he's so repetitive, okay, he's awake now. He wants to get up and do something. He wants to grab something over there, okay? When he's sleeping, when he's coming out of his sleep, all of a sudden, he's going like this. But this hand is kind of like, I guess you could say, twitching, right? What it is, it's a muscle spasm of some kind, okay? And it doesn't happen all the time. It doesn't happen every day. So, and I've mentioned it here and there. It hasn't been dealt with yet, right? The only solution I would think would be to give him a muscle relaxant, which I have here, which I can actually take to the hospital now that I'm thinking about it. It's right here. The reason I haven't used it is because the side effects. It can obviously create drowsiness, and sleepiness, and listlessness. It can impair cognitive abilities, right? Thinking and all that stuff. It can provoke seizures. It could provoke a coma, okay? And a few other little things in there, all right? And the last thing I want is another seizure, never mind worrying about a freaking coma. And I don't want a child all doped up and not really doing anything when the child wants to move and do what Amari does. But I guess the side effect of that is maybe his muscles are overactive. Maybe. And that's what I've been discussing with people as of late, because, you know, I'm trying to figure this out too, right? In terms of like, you know, like what's making him not gain weight. There's got to be different factors in there. So that could be one of them. So in a situation, assuming that could be one of the reasons why, I guess I'm having to look at this again, because the only way they can control muscle spasms or whatever it is that eats up energy, especially in a child like Amari with cerebral palsy, would be a muscle relaxant of some kind, right? Which caps something in, like the dopamine, right? It caps certain things in the brain to calm the body. But again, there's side effects to that. And I wasn't trying to hinder Amari's milestones. No. And he wasn't complaining in terms of pain or anything like that, right? So, might have to do something like that. So I'm glad I talked about it, because it made me think about it. So I'll bring that tomorrow. And I'm bringing the frying pan too. The new one that I just bought. Okay? And they'll be like, why did you... So when these people come and sit down and want to talk, because I'm going to be talking to dietitians, social workers, with the hint of maybe MCFD should be called on me because Amari's so skinny and somehow I'm abusing him, okay? In terms of neglect or whatever, right? By not feeding him enough, which is a bunch of freaking crock, okay? Right? I mean, like, I spent, like I said, $1,700 on a food mill just so that I can start using, even if I just use, because it grinds wheat on one side and whatnot, and beans and all this other crap, and it can do seeds, it can do a lot of things, right? And then on the other side, it's for oat groats, right? And if you want to flake wheat, you can flake wheat too, right? So, and you know me, I'm buying all organic. All this stuff I have in the house is organic. So, you know, if you wanted to rule out glyphosate as a suspect to prevent food absorption in some people, okay? What? Yeah. Well, I'm pretty situated. I can feed Amari organic, nothing but organic wheats as a trial run, if you want to say it, to see, you know, if that makes it, because that's in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. It's not even try it. I'm already working plans. I got the box. The box is here. Oh my God! It's so heavy and it's kind of bigger than I thought.
I can't even pick it up, so don't.
You can't even pick it up. You didn't drop it, did you? How did you get it in?
I can only lift up like for like a little bit, and I use that little bit just to put it down.
You didn't drop it, right? Because that's that new
I said
food.
to put it down.
Did you drop it?
I said to put it down.
There's a difference between putting down and drop it.
Yeah, I said put it down, like putting it down.
Gently, not too hard?
Yeah.
It didn't drop?
No.
Okay.
I crushed my toe.
Yeah, this thing is heavy. It's by the front door. I'm like, come in, what is it? Try to move it. I can't even fucking pick it up, people. Oh my God. So I want to open it up, take the directions, because I feel like I have to defend myself. Well, everybody's on a witch hunt because I couldn't produce that Amazon child that was expected from me, from an injured child, right? In my opinion, at the time of birth. Okay? Seriously. 5 days in labor, be sent away 2 times? Come on, you do the math on that one. Okay? But that's not what it's about. So I'm going to take that little frying pan tomorrow, and I'm going to tell him, okay, well, now that I got your attention, how are we going to fill it up with X amount of calories so that we can divide it by 4? Because honestly, I don't know if half of that 8-inch frying pan might be too much for one sitting for Amari, in light of we want to make sure that his stomach has a chance to digest the food, right? And if the portions are too big and there's only so much room in his stomach, right? It's, it's a delicate process. Easy enough to put it in his mouth, but you can only fill it up, his stomach, so much within a certain amount of time. And different foods digest differently at different times as they travel down through all the there's like 3 or 4 different tracks that they travel down before they finally come out. And for Amari, I've said this before, there's his butthole. It's not aligning up. The poo, the stool is not aligning up, right? It's sitting down here. So when he wants to push, there's nowhere to go because of the way his body is, right? Even if he's sitting on a toilet, it doesn't matter. So, it gets stuck. And if it's really hard, oh my God. Like, there's just so many different factors that is involved here. So I'm taking anyway. I just feel like, it's not feel like, I am. I'm under scrutiny again. And I know it's not about me, right? But, Andre and I, we gave up our lives for Amari, basically, because we're here with him 24/7, right? And right, actions speak louder than words. And that little frying pan is going to speak action, because they're going to be, why did you bring in a frying pan? I'll be, well, because I'm 1 step ahead of you, even though it doesn't look like it. You don't think that I'm not freaking more worried than you are? Like, give your head a shake, right? So, since you're so concerned, and that's what will get me into trouble, because I'll say something stupid like that. Well, since you're so concerned, why don't you help me fill up this frying pan where it makes sense, with a high calorie count, with nutritional food, preferably when you can get it, organic food, because there's a lot of non-organic food in there, right? And should it be divided into 4 meals, or should it be divided into 2 meals? Because once you start dividing it into 2 meals and then expect to feed him again 3 hours later, while whatever you fed him 3 hours ago hasn't been digested because it was too much, right? Easy to tell me to do this, this, and this. And when you do it, though, you end up getting a different kind of result, because his body isn't reacting to the direction the way they want, that they expected it to happen. While you're left with the consequences of it. And then I'm going to bring in the directions. I'm going to open that box. and I'm going to bring in the directions for the food mill. They'll say, what's this? I'll say, well, that's the food mill that I bought because I want, I'm trying to up the ante here with Amari's meals. Yeah. I just have to figure out where I'm going to put this thing. I don't know where. I might have an idea. But it's not what it's bigger than what I could tell. But it's a lifer. And it's a quality product that will in not only increase the calorie count when it comes to the wheats and the beans and that kind of thing, but the nutritional count, because with me using that machine, that's where I know he's getting organic food versus buying bread from the store, versus buying flour from the store. So I'll use this as an example, and then we'll get on to the next subject. I grind up wheat, organic wheat, right, in the mill. I take Amari's little frying pan. I put in some bone broth in there, or whatever, something, home bone broth, whatever, and a few carrots, this little bit of that, and then I take some eggs, whether organic or not, and I mixed my organic flour into those eggs, and then I boil after scooping them up into little spoons, servings, and put them into that liquid and cook it. So it's like an egg noodle, only instead of just commercial white flour, it's actually organic flour that was grinded up that day, while its nutrients are right in it. And it's like you grind it as you use it. Same thing with the wheat. The oats. You grind just what you're going to use for the day. So you're getting full maximum value on your nutrients without the pesticides and the herbicides. Will that make a difference for Amari? I don't know, people. I won't know until I try. There's going to have to be some kind of happy balance in there in terms of if you give them too much oatmeal, it can get too gummy, just like with too much freaking wheat. If you give them too much shreddies over a period of days, because eating shreddies for some people, shreddies is like a natural out. It pushes everything out. Not for Mari. I discovered it doesn't push anything out. It kind of reacts like those drinks. It will start to just pack and compact and not move. So I have to be careful with shreddies. Does that mean I can't give him wheat? No, he needs wheat, right? But maybe not in that kind of a way. Maybe he needs the wheat combined with the egg that was boiled in the bone broth with some freaking spinach in it and a few carrots, and then puree that, so that just in combination of way it was all put together, it's easier for him to digest. And you do that based on that little frying pan as a starting point, because he's bigger. So technically, because he's older and he's bigger, his portion sizes, Andre, turn that down. I'm frazzled. His portion sizes should be getting bigger. But then on the other hand, he still has a very tiny little waist because he inherited that from his mom. And maybe his intestines or something within the intestinal system, because there's different parts, right? This is where I'm not upset about coming into contact with the people that I'm coming into contact with outside of. Maybe some of them are thinking that I'm doing, I've done something wrong, where it's not that I've done anything wrong. It's just, it's not easy, right? In terms of finding that happy balance, because you don't really know what you're up against. When you're in a situation like this, you're just trying to fix something that you can't seem to fix. Okay? So, that's where we're going to start with the frying pan. Because There's no reason to give him a feeding tube when he can eat and eat and eat and drink for himself. He drinks for himself with the bottle. Obviously, he has to be fed, right? I'm speculative about those drinks because I already tried it with giving him 1 or 2 within the week just to see if it would clog him up, and it did. It did. And that creates another problem. Are they expecting me to give him the Emalax on a daily or bi-daily basis? Because you get different messaging. Some doctors will say use as need. Other doctors will say give it to him daily. Other doctors more say use it as you need it. But if one doctor said, I don't know, like every second or third day, like on a more regular basis, even though you didn't maybe needed it, where another doctor will tell you to do it every day, because I guess Tisha heard one doctor say that, so she's screaming at me at the hospital. Well, she wasn't screaming, but she was kind of being haughty about, well, that one doctor said give him, the doctor said give it to him every day, because, with the Emalax, right? But the problem, if you start giving it to him every day, then you're going to start getting diarrhea every day. And if you're going to get diarrhea every day, then don't expect him to absorb any nutrients, because it's all washed away with the diarrhea. So, come on, people. Do you see where I'm at with all this stupid shit? So, yeah, I went off and bought a fucking food mill so I can actually utilize the good wheats and whatever that's in my house as I work on Amari's meal plan, as everybody around me now is I don't know. I get hypersensitive with this. I take it personal, right? Because they look to me to solve the problem through their directions. But just because you give somebody directions doesn't mean it solves the problem. And that's what I've discovered with having a disabled child. Especially when sometimes these directions create problems. Like they put on the ankle bracelet, but they don't realize that one child out of who knows how many swings the leg over, because that's what the legs do. They naturally swing over because of the cerebral palsy, but it breaks the tibia. And then once the tibia is broken, then, it gets cast, whatever. Next thing you know, the child, and now the foot is like this all the time, because that's what makes it comfortable for him, because of whatever, just through time, just whatever. Do I break it on do I blame everything on that because his tibia got broken? Well, people, maybe if his tibia would not have gotten broken by those braces, because it was the leg brace that broke it, right? Maybe his leg wouldn't be so gimped up. But once it got, whatever, but he uses it to his advantage. So life is life. Sometimes you just have to go and roll with it, right? Nobody put those leg braces on Amari waiting for him to break his tibia. But once it got broken, it changed it did, right? Where he's comfortable with it. So I'm not trying to get mad at anybody, but everybody looking at me like something I did wrong. When in fact, if you want to take it to the core, take it to the freaking ankle bracelet that broke the tibia, because that's when that shit started. Okay? And I just didn't hinder my grandson. I've got one leg brace because they reordered new ones. But I didn't take them because I said, to hell no, I'm not having him break again. And so they needed another prescription to make a different kind where there'd be like padding to protection because Amari's so active. Whose fault is that? Nobody's fault. They should be happy that he's active, right? Sometimes they don't see it as a blessing in disguise. They see it as, well, he's using up too much energy. right? I don't know. So, okay. So I'm taking the frying pan with me tomorrow. That's the starting point, because he eats. If he didn't eat and didn't love to eat and didn't want to eat, then I'd be like, yeah, go ahead, do whatever. But in regards to any freaking supplemental drinks, well, the only thing I could think that they would recommend is, I don't know. Seriously, people, if they want me to give them, oh my God, I'm telling you, and this is, and my landlady are going to be ragging me about this. Oh, get rid of this and get rid of that, Judy. Oh, fucking get out there and start pulling weeds, Judy. Well, I'm being told by the freaking hospital staff that I need to cook up this, and this, at least this, at least this much every day in this, blah, right? So that we can figure out what the hell is going on here versus relying on supplemental drinks, people, to solve the problem when I'm already thinking that those drinks caused part of the problem. Did they create the whole problem? Well, that's kind of a broad, sweet thing to say on my part, to say that it was all their fault. But, I'm kind of leaning in that direction that, yeah, those drinks created a lot of freaking problems for Amari. But to be fair, I'll say no, not all his problems when it comes to digestion. And if they try and put him back on that shit, Andre and I are in panic mode. Well, Tisha's just saying stuff him up with Emilax. That's what they do. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you don't change him with the diarrhea that comes from it. And it doesn't even freaking soften the whole stool. It only softens the outside of it. So he still stays clogged. Why is nobody hearing that part of the story? But I kind of know what works. And I'd have to stay focused on the prune juice, the prunes that I grind up, an X amount of spinach, and between those 3 food groups, because they're different kinds, right? I mean, yeah, prunes and prunes, but one, right? Okay. And spinach is a big one. I suppose you could throw in a little bit of kale too, and even the bok choy. But we'll just say spinach. Andre, I don't want to have to compete with you, please. Okay? I'm like kind of frazzled here. Shut up. Andre, I don't want to hear it. If you can find a happy medium where it compensates everything else that he eats to help pass it along, which in the first couple of months, 2-3 months or whatever it was, when I stopped those drinks finally, was actually working. And at one point I even thought, right? I'm like, Andre, does he look like he's fattening up here and whatever? Because you have to remember, when the body isn't absorbing nutrients, things start to kind of shrivel up a little bit, right? So this is where it becomes dangerous. So, like maybe this poo getting stuck in him is making him, I don't know, people. He's happy though. He thought he was coming home. He wanted to come home. Because he remembered being there. Yeah. And he got all happy. Because he woke up eventually and whatnot. And yeah. When they take the IV out of him, the last time when they took the IV out of him, he was complaining to them. Like he does. He communicated. He let them know that he didn't like it, right? As they were taking it out, right? So I know he doesn't want to be there. I know it. I know my little Amari. So I'm going to take the directions for the food mill. I'm going to say, okay, this is what we got to work with. This frying pan. I don't even bring my lid. With this beautiful little lid. Godsend, okay? With that godsend lid. And the directions for this food mill that just got delivered to my house so that I can start accessing my organic grains and whatnot. And we build a well, yeah. How much, right, in terms of like a recipe, I mean, we've done that. I've gotten that kind of help, but it's not. It's like it has to be more regime. It's like I told Cindy from the Child Development Center, you need your own fridge for Amari. And definitely a more functioning kitchen would be preferable, right? You're right? Because it has to be regulated to some degree or another. Where you have your staples, the prunes, the plums, the spinach, as the more natural laxative compared to the Emolax, but it has to be done within ratio to proportion to the other foods that you're giving him, because you can upset his prune too much prunes can upset stomachs, right? Can cause bloating, and so there has to be a certain balance with that. Too much spinach will definitely put him into diarrhea. I discovered that. But it can also be used as a regulator to help with the food, because I've experienced that already with Amari. But as soon as you start introducing the heavier foods, the gummier foods, like the shreddies, and because that's the first thing you go for. You don't go for the wheat that's in the bucket that came from the farms. You go to the grocery store and you buy the shreddies. I'm in that transitional stage, and that's the purpose of bringing the directions to the food mill, to show that I'm serious about what I'm doing, and I suppose just as serious as what they're doing, considering that they're there to either figure out whether it's something physiological that's wrong with him, that's something to do with his intestines. Like there's a disease or something where there's a part of the intestine is just needs to be removed, and once they remove that part of the intestine, then that individual can gain weight again. I read it, right? Because every now and then I try and I'm looking up this, looking up that, and through reading I come into contact with those types of things. So maybe we're dealing with something like that, right? Or there's people out there that can't digest fats, and obviously there's people out there that are allergic to wheats. Not that Amari gets a lot of wheat, but I suppose if you're giving him shreddies, yes, he is. Yeah. And because it's a commercial wheat, then it's more prone to have herbicides and pesticides versus organic. So I'm in the organic transitional stage, and I went as far as put my head into the water with the mill, but I don't think anyone's going to run off with this albatross anytime soon. It was easy for Rhea to run off with the flaker. That's, fuck you, bitch. I match you. I got something even better than that. And you know what? If I want to, in a year or two from now, after I'm caught up with all this, whatever I'm doing in my life, I can always order another one of those flakers for $400 hand crank, just in case the hydro goes out and you still want your oatmeal, because this one that I got is electric, right? You can't use it unless, you have electricity. And that was the beauty of the one that Rhea stole. That one you could do by hand. And it pisses me off that she stole it so much so that I went off and I bought what I bought. And yeah, who was at the top of my list when I bought it, people? Amari. Okay, I'm imagining myself grinding up his 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 tablespoons of oatmeal fresh as it's going into the pot. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I can grind up seeds in that thing. There's certain kind of seeds I can grind up in it. If I want to flake, like flake oats, right? If I want to flake wheat and cook that up for Amari as I'm making something in that nice little red dish, I can do that. Flake barley if I want. Or I can turn it into flour if I want. Yeah. That's how disturbed I am about all this. That's why I need a functioning kitchen. And another fridge. But I ain't gonna get that, so I have to work with what I got. Yep. As I wait for the next attack. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. Why do you need that? Chuck it out. It's ugly. It's old. You know, like stupid shit like that, right? I'm gonna still have to do. Why isn't the morning glory getting too green out there with morning glory with white little flowers? But I thought you wanted flowers. There, you got little white flowers throughout the whole freaking yard because I've been more busy trying to keep up with what's going on with my grandson than worrying about stupid morning glory out in the yard. Because even if you pulled out all that morning glory, for anyone that's been watching my videos knows that this is the truth and nothing but the truth. I could pull out 50 bags of freaking morning glory, right? And at the end of the day, who's going to show up? The city of Surrey. Well, Miss Chorney, what have you been doing? Clearly you haven't done enough, even though you pulled out 50 fucking bags of morning glory. But we'll ignore that fact, right? Because we didn't see you do it. So who cares? But what about that's too green over there? Or maybe that's too freaking gray over there? Or whatever. Or maybe they'll come for the morning glory. Knock, knock. You got 7 days to pull morning glory. Otherwise, the city's going to come pull morning glory. Because it's too green and we don't like little white fucking flowers. Is that the priority? I'm going to end it on this note because obviously I'm annoyed, right? Am I going to end it on that note so my landlady can get fucking rich and the city of Surrey can increase their property taxes so that I end up becoming homeless after pulling out all this freaking morning glory for nothing? Outside of being harassed? So they have another excuse to kick me out as they build their fucking case? Well, I'm being told that I'm not doing good enough by my grandson because he's losing weight all the time, no matter what is at this point being done. As my landlady expects me to go outside and throw away more shit, but yet still do shit. But if I remember correctly, you told me I had no right to do shit. But yet you're bugging me every time you see me to do shit. Like, what the hell? Make up your mind. So you know that's nagging on me, right? Another 4-day notice. Landlord gets it on a Sunday, comes and brings it to me on a Wednesday and tells me I got 2 days to pull fucking morning glory because it's too green. As people are doing whatever people are doing with Amari. But I'm going to see it as a blessing in disguise. I knew it was coming anyway because that was the whole point with Dr. Malpuri at the Children's Hospital 5 months ago, was to hook up with the doctor downtown and the nurse downtown. But this doctor here at Surrey Memorial Hospital said, well, we're taking advantage of the situation. You're here now. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm here now. You know, everybody's here now. Whatever they do can't follow over to the Children's Hospital, and then you got 2 more people trying to figure out this situation. And if it means me being a slave to the kitchen with X amount of this, and this, and this on a regime, because that's kind of what it boils down to with Amari at this point, unless, of course, it's something else that's the problem here in terms of physical, right? With his intestinal tract, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Or inability to absorb nutrients for whatever reason, right? There's different reasons, right? This could be happening. Then, you know, my landlords can't expect me to drop Amari just so I could go outside and, I don't know, make everything look pristine as if grand. Inside the house, inside this house. Because we know it's not. So why make it pretend look like it is? by making me go outside and pull morning glory versus being in the kitchen cooking for my grandson. So when my landlady comes and says, why didn't you pull morning glory? I'll tell her, because I have to cook for my grandson right now, Mrs. Gill, because it's a do or die situation. Oh, but that doesn't matter. That's not what's important here, because if you don't go out and pull out the freaking morning glory, we're going to have the city coming by saying it's too green. So God forbid, and plus I don't like those little white flowers. Get rid of them while you're getting rid of the freaking morning glory. So now you're pulling out two different types of weeds that produce two different types of white flowers that nobody fucking likes, as they're telling you to plant flowers. How does that work? So I have to take my chances. And I'm going to put my grandson first. Yeah. So don't be surprised if I don't say the city of Surrey is back at it in the next month or 2 or 3. Okay? If he didn't eat, then it would be a different story. He likes to eat. Use that to your advantage. Learn how to make it work for him. Just like he learned how to make his legs work for him. He can turn himself around in less than a minute and be halfway across the freaking couch the minute you leave the bloody living room. And if he wants to get on the other side in the opposite direction so he can hang off the couch and go grab something, he can do that under a minute. Under a minute. Just by the way he maneuvers, flump, flump, and boom. He's got it down pat. Does it burn a lot of calories? It must. Damn rights. Does it deform his body to a certain degree one way or another? Yes, but so did breaking his tibia, because that's what started to provoke it, and he just learned to adapt and use it to his advantage. Nobody's fault. That's just life. Some things you just have to accept as life. As long as he's happy and he's not in pain and it works for him, that's all that matters, because he doesn't have very much. You know what I'm saying? It's not like he can get up and go and do what he wants. And what little bit he can do shouldn't be, he shouldn't be denied that, right? No. And my landlord is just going to have to understand that, I'm not like her. I'm not a free bird that can run around doing the things that she does, because I'm stuck at home trying to hold down a fort that people are trying to take away from me, basically. And with a child that nobody really wants at the end of the day, because it requires work to look after him. It's easy to say one thing, is another thing to actually do the walk. And so I'm not turning my back on him. Mm-mm. And neither is Andre. So for every meal that I make it in fear, because I don't know what's going to happen with this stupid yard. There you go. What do you think about that? Huh? Because that's basically what it's going to come down to here. Pretty much. And if these people are going to work with me, well, then they're going to help me to fill up that frying pan. Uh-huh. Yeah.